My name is Zo Dirse. I'm a cinematographer, director of photography. I'm a full member of the Canadian Society of Cinematographers. I started working in 1979, is basically when I joined IATSE as a second camera assistant. And in I worked in Toronto for several years as a camera assistant, working on commercials and features and documentaries. And in 1982, I was hired full-time by the National Film Board of Canada and moved to Montreal, where I worked for 17 years shooting documentaries and dramas and feature films as well. A cinematographer is responsible for the image that's put on tape or film. So you're responsible for the composition, the framing, the lighting. You work in close conjunction with the director to try to get the best look that they're after. Yeah, it's basically an interpretation of the director's vision of the film that they're trying to create. I've done a lot of documentaries all over the world dealing with social and cultural issues. A couple of films that have won awards are films like Balkan Journey, Forbidden Love, which was a very challenging and interesting film because it dealt with a subject matter that was new. And also we shot documentary, which 16mm, and also a 35mm fiction version that was intercut with the documentary footage. I've shot films dealing with the Second World War, where we did reenactments in France and Poland. I've recently did a film in 2005 where I went to India with a well-known director called Ali Kazemi, also a cameraman. That won the Donald Britton Award that year. It had a huge viewership on the CBC. It was called Runaway Grooms. There was another documentary I did not too long ago called Vendetta Song, which was about an honor killing in the Kurdish part of Turkey, which was quite fabulous to film because of the landscape and also challenging because of issues around safety, because of the PKK groups that sort of are trying to break away from the rest of Turkey in that area. The hours can vary. It depends. You know, recently I was filming this art patron, so I was teaching here for 6 hours, at school for 10 hours, and then zoomed downtown and shot for 5 hours straight at an art opening. So, you know, it depends. I mean, you know, you can wake up at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning to get a sunrise over the gates of India. You can work late into the night. It really depends on the demands of the production. If you're working feature films, it can be very early calls. You can do night shifts depending on the locations. So it varies. It really varies. You have to be prepared to take it all in. And sometimes the hours can be very long. Well, when I started, I'd actually gotten a degree at U of T in psychology, and then later I got a degree in education. I took some film courses at University U of T. Had some experience working with a camera, but nothing very formal. So after working for a few years, I decided I wanted to pursue cinematography and looked into where I could study, but there wasn't anything at that point in Canada other than Ryerson that had a program that addressed cinematography. And I felt that if I really did want to go study, I'd wanted to go to Europe, or preferably Czechoslovakia or Moscow or Poland, but that was quite expensive and I didn't speak those languages, so then I thought, what's the other route? And then I discovered that most people at the time, how they became cinematographers is that you could take a training course with the Canadian Society of Cinematographers to become a camera assistant. And then you would, if you were so lucky to get on some film shoots, you could get training on the job as an apprentice. And that's more or less what happened to me. I ended up training with some very good people from IATSE and ended up getting on quite a few feature films that landed me a spot in the union. Well, when I started, it was mostly film. It was all film. We were just shooting film because I wasn't working in television, so we were really working in film, which was fabulous. And then, you know, the advent of video coming more into the mainstream. I think it was High 8, which came out, and I immediately went out and bought a camera, shot my first film, but still continued working with film, on films at the National Film Board in the film medium. And when the film camera department was closed by the government at the time, and there was big budget cuts, I moved back to Toronto and then mostly started working in video. And then HD's come along. Now we're working with cameras like the Red. Recently I was at a workshop for a 3D workshop. So it is changing, and it's very exciting actually, because it just opens up a lot more possibilities. Well, technology is always a part of your job, so you have to be aware of what is coming out there. So if there's a new light that's come out on the market, I was even watching the Olympics. A lot of people are using LED lights, which are very nice and compact. They're expensive, but there's always something new. So just being aware of what's out there and bringing it to your craft is important. Well, that's a good question, actually, because as a woman and being one of few in Canada or anywhere, a lot of women have. I think it's more challenging to have a family. I have several female friends that are cinematographers who have children. One just recently, and there are challenges connected to that because you're not as free with your time. So I think that's just something to take into account. I know some women who've had to give up their careers because of their kids, and others manage, so it really depends. I think a person who's creative, who's flexible, who's willing to work really long hours, who likes to work in teams, who likes to work with groups of people, and who likes a challenge, basically. Well, I mean, I think just anything that, you know, if a student in high school is interested in getting into the media, then get your hands on a camera, start shooting all the time, whether they're so inexpensive now, you can buy them. You know, it should become like your tool. It should be right next to you all the time. When I was in high school, I was an avid photographer. And I'm convinced that really made me a better cinematographer because I was always taking photographs. And also I think, I did not realize how few women are behind the camera and how challenging that can be and disheartening at times when you're quite young and you're wanting to make your mark and get out there. It's unfortunately still very much a boys' club. You have to have a lot of guts and determination to stick with it. And I've known other women that have sort of, it was too tough, so they chose another path. And in my 30 years, I never expected it to. I mean, it's better. There's a lot more women working in the industry than there. I think that was the biggest surprise of all. Keep yourself a diary, a daily diary of images that you like, that you see in your everyday environment. Read what you can. Watch films every day. Ingmar Bergman watched films every day of his life. He even went to sleep watching James Bond movies. I mean, and he was a master filmmaker. So the more you watch, the more you train your eye. Go to art galleries, study art history, study the great photographers, and you'll have a shot at it.